Well, that brings us up to how are these funds generated? What's the history of the property tax? And we know that's a major factor, and we might want to get into a little bit of how the state has changed with their commitment to local districts. It's not understood by a lot of people, but it really brings it back to the local district. So let's have a discussion on that, and we've got some charts as well too, but just give us a little background on that and how that works.
Well, you can see on the screen what we've shown today is a total tax rate per thousand for the general fund, which is our general operating fund that's within the school district. That's where all the teacher salaries and benefits, all the employee benefits are paid for. General operating costs and everything. The previous pie chart that we showed is basically the general fund. And then you'll also see the management fund. That's the little red bar. Those are it's a categorical or specific use type fund where we can only pay for insurance benefits, not employee insurance benefits, but property, auto, liability, that sort of thing. And then the PEPAL fund is the physical plant and equipment levy. The district has been fortunate enough to have that fund, and the community has supported that for a number of years. And we use that for a variety of things to include the repairs of buildings, purchasing equipment. More and more we're using that for technology, as our technology needs throughout the district have continued to grow. And so those are basically the three funds. Debt service is the other one, but the school district does not have any debt service at this time. Any debt that we have is all paid through our 1 cent local option sales tax revenues. So you can see over the last half a dozen years or so, we've been able to continue to slowly reduce our property tax asking on a per thousand basis situation, and we're proud of that. We've got some graphs that'll talk about where we rank in the top 25 school districts in size across the state, and there you can see that right there. We always compare ourselves to our neighbors, and when you compare us to the 25 largest school districts across the state, this would be for the 2014-15 school year. Cedar Falls had the lowest tax rate of those 25 largest school districts by population across the state. And that's broken down by general fund rate, management, PEPAL, and all of that to break it all down to show the total rate.
I might add the PEPAL, when you mentioned we've had it for a number of years. I think we've had it for 80 plus years.
Correct.
I think there have been referendums on that every 10 years. I think it still is
That's
the same
correct.
case. And so, not that I've been here all the 80 years, but it's close to it. But that's been a significant factor, and you mentioned about many ways it can be expended, those dollars with that.
And we're really leveraging those PEPAL dollars with technology in particular as we've been moving into the one-on-one initiative across the district. And we would not be able to have accomplished what we've been able to accomplish in the last few years without those physical plant equipment levy dollars.
I think what's really interesting about that graph is you look at the last 6 years, obviously our tax levy rate has decreased over those last 6 years. At the same time, the state has really been shifting some of the burden and relieving some of the local property tax rates as well with corporate different rules and regulations that they've imposed the last several years. And picked up some more of the cost at the statewide level. So, you know, we've been trying to balance some of the rollbacks and some of the new code requirements that have come in, as well as trying to ensure that we're being fiscally responsible and lowering that levy rate. So there's a lot of factors at play. There's a lot of discussion that has to take place, and a lot of fiscal management that we're responsible for, and really a testament to Doug and the school board, because they do a tremendous job ensuring fiscal management and ensuring that we are strong fiscal managers as we look at how do we expend taxpayer dollars.
There's a danger in asking a question like this, because I don't know if you've got the answer, but as that has been reduced, is there a percentage you could put on that, Andy, that of the state commitment towards the funding of schools compared to the property tax? In that period of time, how much has that shifted? Is it like 60 to 50%, or it's hard to determine exactly, but a round figure? I think people would need to understand that there has been a shift in just what you've been talking about.
That's exactly right.
That'd be a hard question to answer, but what I can tell you is over the last half a dozen years or so, the rollback, which in real simplistic terms means what you're total assessed valuation of a piece of property is on a residential level, and then it rolls back down to the actual taxable assessed valuation. That number has been growing, so an individual property, residential property tax owner, the amount that they're paying taxes on is incrementally moving up. At the same time, a few years ago, the legislature and the governor approved a commercial industrial rollback, and so that's been slowly being implemented and being put into place. Now the state of Iowa is backfilling those dollars with state aid, but that is scheduled to run out in another year, if my memory serves me correctly. So we're not quite sure what that impact will be for us in future.
Will there have to be
school
decisions
years.
made at that level, at the legislative level?
They could potentially be, or they could potentially choose not to do that, and then that would just sort of fade off into the sunset, and then it would be up to the local property taxing entity to deal with that. Now, that's not just a school district concern, but it would be any municipality across the state of Iowa that would have
Anyone
the
that's
same
receiving
issue.
those tax dollars?
There's been a lot of discussion from cities and counties about the very same thing, that once that agreement goes away, that they would backfill those dollars, which goes away very quickly. What happens with that gap? And certainly that's a gap that needs to be explored and discussed, because that's fairly significant when you look at the business and industry, that commercial rollback. And again, I think a lot of people across the state support the rollback. It's a great opportunity to increase business and industry across the state, but there are some taxing implications and funding implications that go along with it.
And I would echo that too. I think the whole thing from my perspective is that continuity and how we can continue to budget and move forward with knowing what our assessed valuations are and what our revenue stream is going to be, so that we can meet the needs of kids.